Okay, I apologize for that. The screaming outside the door, that was unexpected. But back to the project. Okay, so um, that message keeps coming up because I have autosave turned on. And if you haven't done that, make sure that you go Windows, Setting, Preferences, and Preferences. And where it says Files, Reference, no, File Projects. Make sure you enable autosave. That way, if your computer crashes, you can retrieve the last version that the software saved by itself. I wouldn't put the number of autosaves too high because it might take too much memory on your computer. So you will have 6 different copies of your of your file plus whatever else you have in your hard drive. And also on the interval, 5 minutes seems to be okay. If you want to make it larger or smaller number, that's up to you. Just remember, the more saves you do, the more chances that the software could actually crash while you're working on saving something. And just wanted to give you a heads up on that one because it's very useful. 3D Studio Max also has the same thing. So I posted under course resources how to do that, the autosave for both software if you need more details. Okay, back to this. If you wanted to do maybe a door frame with the door separate, what you can do is maybe something like a cube, like a simple cube over here. And let's move it up. Excuse me. And let's give it a shape of whatever, let's say the door. So let's shape it first by rescaling. Okay, so I'm going to make it thinner, assuming that it's going to be in this door, in this wall. And like we did before, just scale it and stretch it on any axis to make it look like an actual door. I'm going to, this is a very small door. Make sure, double check, I apologize for the concert outside the door. I'm going to make it tall, okay, tall enough to maybe, this is a bit too tall. If this was the window, it's kind of looking a little bit too tall, but let's put the window away on the door for reference, a little bit. Don't put it too far out. Sometimes students do windows that are way far out. So then I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna work on probably a door frame over there. So after I have it, I'm pressing alternate and left mouse key and middle mouse to kind of navigate. You'll get used to it. If initially you can't understand well how that works, you'll get used to it, don't worry. So I'm going to push it a little bit further out so that you can see it. I'm going to make a duplicate, okay? And I'm going to call this one, instead of, I'm going to go to this one, the layer editor channel box, and I'm going to call it door frame. Remember to name things, because then that way when you go to the outliner over here, Windows outliner, which you might see some tutorials, this is all the geometry you have. So you see, I don't know what P cube is. Oh, that's the window. So let's rename it right there, window. Okay, that way you have the geometry defined there and you know what it is. Okay, if there's something you need to delete, you can delete it easily. Okay, just double click here to get out of the outliner. Okay, so this is the door frame. I'm going to duplicate it to make the door. Okay, so edit, duplicate, and I'm going to push it a little bit further out, just with the only intention of making it smaller. Okay, so I'm going to make it shorter. And do I want to make it, let's make it, let's just make it shorter. So, well, no, yeah, we need to, I will scale it on this axis to make the frame so that you can see it. Okay, so I scale it down and to the side, okay, on the Y and Z axis. And I'm going to move it back. Move it back to the point that it intersects. How do I know it intersects? Because I lost that back edge over there. If you see, if I move it forward, I see that edge. If I put it back and I don't see it, it's pretty much intersecting. And I'm going to also go back to the scale tool. I'm going to make that very wide because I want it to go over on the back. Okay, so at least you see that. Let's cancel that. You see that it's going back further back. You know, this is my frame, so the other part is going back. And what I'm going to do is pretty much cut it with booleans. Okay, so let's go. Where's booleans? Still on the modeling menu. Said it's like a little scissors that you're going to use on your project. Mesh booleans difference. Okay, that's going to give you a, gonna click here, and the first thing you need to do is before we do that, let's click on what is going to become the frame. So you get the bigger shape first, and whatever is going to make the imprint, or whatever you're going to cut off, you know, use as a shape to cut off from this one, then you click it second. Okay, and over there back on the difference boolean, say apply, and ta-da, there is your simple frame. Okay, so now you can move it whatever you need to. Okay, so let's say that you want your door to be over here, so let's just make sure it touches the, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't come out on the back because we're looking at this room from the inside. Okay, if you were going to do the whole house in a very architectural way, then you want to make sure that that door goes over to the other side. Okay, so you just can scale it, you know, like that, so that it crosses over to the other side and is seen on the front. Okay, like so. Let's see, like that. Okay, so but a little bit, I'll probably push it a little bit more. Okay, so let's push it back so that we can see this here. You could actually you know, scale these guys down to stop right here, right? Or even move it if you wanted to, if it bothers you. This is what I'm saying, you know, so that it touches there and here. Usually the bottom is not too high because you don't want to fall, right? You don't want to cause some people to trip over when they come in. So it's probably either nothing or a little ledge there to prevent bugs from coming in. And then you have this one here. You probably have to scale and duplicate, you know, so that it doesn't look too far out from there. I don't mind that little part here that was left. So then I'm going to duplicate that so that I can put it on this side over here, so that because I cut it off there. Duplicate, edit, duplicate. Sorry about that. That was a tired brain moment. And you can always push it back. If it goes a little bit far out, it's not recommendable, but it's not a big deal if we're looking at it from the inside. Okay, so there you go, you have that. If you wanted to cut this from the window, from the wall, you do the same. Just choose the wall, which is the one that's going to have the hole on it, and holding the shift key down, select the frame, and let's go back to that tool. Where was it? On mesh booleans difference. Okay, and let's undo there for a moment. Mesh booleans difference, and open here. What I'm seeing here, that because we have nothing here in the middle, we're not seeing the full results that we want. So if I hit apply, if you notice, it's not quite doing what I want. So don't worry about it. Just Control Z to undo, edit, undo boolean, and what we can do is use a full rectangle. Okay, like a full cube. So let's make another cube. Why do I keep clicking there? A full cube of a door. So let's go back to make it again. Good practice here. So move it back, scale it up, and scale it the other way. And let's try again. Let's select the, let me move it back so that we can see it. I want it a little bit thicker because I want it to go cut all the way through the door. Okay, so if I make it too thin, it's not going to cut all the way. So make it very large in that direction, so that way it makes a big hole on it. And let's select the wall. Okay, I have a wall selected. I have that big box we just created. And let's go back to the mesh, Booleans, difference. Okay, always reset your tools before you use them and apply. There it is. So we have our fully trimmed door with Booleans. Okay, and before you make the Boolean operation, you can make a copy of that door. Notice that you start even giving, you know, nice edges here, so that way it looks kind of nice. Before you make that, you can actually make a duplicate of that box that we just created, right? The cube. Or you can create your own door now. You know, you can go up, scale it. You could do, make it thinner. Remember, this is, I'm repeating the same process so that you can see how it's done. You know, it's scale it, move it back, grab this axis, and from there you can scale it. Okay, remember that you can always move the rotation point to the bottom. Okay, did I just, oh yes, that's not right. That's very, very tall. Remember, insert, the insert key. I'm going to press it now. I'm going to move that rotation to the bottom of my geometry here. And then I'm going to hit the insert key again with the purpose of using that bottom, so that that bottom part doesn't react as much. You see that now it's easier to determine how high we're going. Back to the move tool. I'm going to put that bottom part there, and now I'm going to scale it a little bit easier. Okay, so this is just the same things that we did. Are you seeing that it's a little bit similar to what we did before? Okay, there you go. There's your door. And if you wanted to rotate from one of the sides, you can always get the insert key again. Okay, and line it up here, and I'm pressing alternate and left mouse to make it rotate from there. And I'm going to press insert again, and look at what that does. When you get the select the rotation tool, look at how nice it rotates from that side that we just created. There's a few adjustments that I needed to do, like you see that the door right there goes through the frame. You don't want that, so you just tweak those details with your you know, with a little bit more precision than what I'm doing here. Okay, so good, you have that. The hinges are actually pretty easy. You can always create cylinders and make them longer. You see that I did there. I'm gonna push it up so that you see. I'm gonna make a fairly big one so that you can see how it's done. You can either modify, you know, the settings here, or you can you can, let me see, 0.5, 0.3, and just making it thinner on the radius, 0.1 maybe. You don't want to put it to, I want you to be able to see, so let me make it 0.2, and I'm going to scale it, right? Scale it on this axis, and if you look at the hinges, they kind of look like cylinders that are together, one on top of the other. So you could do something as simple as this. You know, you can duplicate this, edit, duplicate, put a few. Let's say I'm looking at one on my door now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it has about 5 of these. So let's do edit, duplicate. If you notice that the shortcut is here, so Control D, And I'm gonna get the move tool to move it. So let's put 5 of them. Another one, Control D, move it up. Control D, move it up. So I have 5 of them over there, okay? And they're kind of stacked up. Let me remove that. I'm gonna go Windows, Settings, Preferences. Let me get the autosave to not be enabled because it's gonna keep popping up and I don't want it to keep interrupting. And for the sides, you could go as simple as creating a cube, okay? And I'm going to probably scale it, and it could be like that. If you wanted to, it's probably much thinner than this, okay? And it's a whole one that covers the whole thing. So kind of looking at the one at the door of my office, and it should kind of scale it. I'll scale it down to kind of cover the hinges. It's actually smaller, shorter kind of. So I'm going to scale it down in this axis to make it shorter. And then you have kind of one on one side and the other one on the other side. So you want to intersect it a little bit. And if you wanted to, and then you can do the other one. I'm going to duplicate, edit, duplicate, and I'm going to rotate it in this axis, rotation 90 degrees. I'm going to type 90 over here, so that is very even. And I'm going to move it back. I'm just kind of creating the illusion of that hinge over there, okay? You might notice that the cylinders have a little bit of a gap that I'm not quite seeing here. So what I might do is just duplicate that one cylinder, and this is going to be fun. Edit, duplicate, and I'm going to make that like an interior rod inside all of them. So I'm gonna scale that down, and we're not gonna be able to see it now, and scale it up, okay? I'm gonna have to move it back here. So okay, so that's gonna be inside of all of them, and I'm gonna just push it back. And what I'm gonna do now is most likely get these guys a little shorter, so that there's a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a separation on, oh, sorry, Control Z. Let me alternate and middle mouse, so that there's a little bit of a gap. You see now it starts looking a little bit more like there's a little spacing between them, and that's more like what they look like when you look at them. Okay, so that's, you see that starts looking a little bit more like you know, a few of them. You can edit the spacing as you like, and you can always add a little cap on the top and bottom if there's one. You could either do it by adding maybe a little sphere if you want, and scaling it like that and making it small in all axes, and then I'm going to put it kind of like on the top over there. See how that looks. You see, I'm using just primitives here, and I'm trying to build that shape, okay? And then scale and all axes to kind of create that. If I need to give it a little bit more depth, I will. And put it on top. Still kind of looks odd. So I'm gonna do it so that barely covers the tip. Oh. And probably just a little bit more bigger. So it's kind of like that, I guess. So there you go. Oh, I made it too small. There you go. It should cover about that. So look at how nice it looks when we deselect it. Okay, so imagine that, you know, plated or with a color. And for this, you have several options that you could do. We could do more subdivisions. Let's say 10, let's see, 10, 10. And I will leave the depth to 1 because we don't need too many on the depth on this part here. But check this out. You could very well right click, go to vertex, and select these two last points there. And with the move tool, you could do, you know, your own little design like that. And that way it looks more rounded versus this. You could also, I'm going to undo. Okay. You could also double click on the move tool and go down to self-selection that I had on before. So just you pick it up, you turn it on, and look at you. Now you get like a little gradient that you might look that is kind of similar to the colors you see here. What this does is, you saw how sharp those edges were before. Now you could do the same. It's a little bit too high. Put it on 0.5. It's not quite doing what I want. It's 0.1, 0.1, and it's a little better. Not quite rounded as I wanted it to, but it's a little bit more rounded as compared to before. Before it was kind of sharp, and you could then maybe grab this one too, and you know, give it a little bit of a push as well if you wanted to. But the idea is to round this a little bit more versus this. You know, you have both styles on Hinges out there. So whatever design you pick, you can do that. Now for the bolts on it, you can very well do the same. You know, you can do something like that. Let's duplicate that. Duplicate, and I'm going to make it much bigger so that you can see the scale tool, scale it up so that you can see what I'm trying to do here. If you want to do, you know, the little cross for the nails that go in it, what you can do is take a box, okay, a cube. I'm sorry, why do I keep calling box? Cube, and go move it up, and guess what, we're gonna do another Boolean. So I'm going to do that one there, and this will take a little bit of trial and error. Duplicate it, Control D for duplicating, and I'm gonna make it like a little cross. So over here and rotate Y over here, I'm gonna make it 90 so that it's like a little cross. Okay, and I'm going to move them both. Select, and holding the shift key to select them both. I'm going to move them and put them in the middle of that guy that we just made. Are you seeing what I'm going with this? If you want to go all the way over, it's going to make a hole. So if you wanted just to make a little stamp, you can do it like that, that it touches the bottom but doesn't go all over the through, okay, through it. Sorry about that. So I select first the one that's going to receive the cuts, and then I select these two guys, and let's go back to mesh, booleans, difference, apply, and I'm going to close that, and oh okay, I turned too far, and there is your ta-da, your little bolt. You know, then you can position that, repeat it, duplicate, clone it, repeat it any times you want, and then put it over here. Okay, I think I did. Let me move it back so that you can see it in place like that, and I think I might need to rotate it and scale it several times, so I'm scaling it down. Oh no. There we go. And probably move it. Okay. And see that it's on it, not just floating over it. Like that. I think I rotated it a little bit too much. Let's see 90 degrees over here. Okay, let's see if that works. And then probably duplicate it a few times, right? Edit, duplicate, and I'm skipping that important part that I mentioned before, right? The part of naming stuff. So let's make sure that we do that. And duplicate and move it down. And maybe like that, I don't know, you know, that's looking pretty good to me. So if you want to move it all, remember you can group things. So select everything that you want to group. So I'm kind of clicking, click. This is where it becomes important to always click there, and I'm holding the shift key and selecting all my elements, and I left a big gap over there, so that needs to be fixed, but gives you the idea. And you can go edit, group. Okay, now you have something here that is called group 1. So if you click there, you call it hinge. And the beauty of that is that you come in, oh, I want to select the whole hinge. You select the up key, the up arrow head on your keyboard, and that way you can scale it and rotate it as one single piece. Okay, you can move it, rotate it, do whatever you need to it. Okay, I would suggest to move that pivot point, so insert key and probably move it up to kind of like the middle of the hinge and insert again. That way you can manipulate it better. Okay, and for the door, you know, you can the same technique you can apply to outlets, power outlets. Just shape the things you want and use booleans and then put them on the wall, make one, and then repeat it several times over the scene. For the door, you know, you can make a simple cylinder, you know, scale it on the up axis. Probably here on the attributes here and pollen inputs, I'm gonna probably set the radius to 0.5 or even less. You know, this will be where you get creative, and then maybe get, let's say, a sphere. You could use a sphere and flatten it with the scale tool, and then move it on top of that. You know, yeah, that kind of looks like a door handle. You know, very simplistic shape. You can then use booleans to get the keyhole done. And as I mentioned before, you can just shift and select the other side of the door or doorknob, and then go edit group. And now you can move it together, and you can rotate it. Ta-da! And you can move it back like so. And since your door is kind of open, you might want to then rotate it and close it while you model this part, right? So that way you're not kind of guessing. I'm gonna put that in 0 so that it's kind of lined up. And then back to our doorknob, but wait a second, I keep clicking and keep selecting that front part. So remember the trick of the up arrow takes you to the doorknob, to the group name. Door knob. There you go. I forgot to name it. And from there, just position it, put it back on the against the wall. I mean against the door. Scale it, and I went away. And scale it. This is where the pivot point gets extremely useful. There you go. That's about, you know, you might want to think of the people who live in the house. Oh, I left one guy over here. That's okay. We can always go back to grouping it. Okay, so press up arrow, position it where you think. You don't want to have to climb on a ladder to get the door handle, right? You kind of do it thinking of an average construction placement, and even more with people with special needs that might need lower doorknobs placement. So you think of where you want to place it, and then you select your door and group it. Edit, group, and then now you can call that door. So the door now has all of the handle on it, and it will rotate with it. The only thing we need to do is now get that pivot point to the corner there, so that it rotates from this side over here, right? So let's just do that, and you might want to do this using maybe the side view or so that you can see where is it that you're placing the pivot. I am kind of used to it, so I kind of go on the perspective view, kind of rotate around it and estimate if it's where I want it, and then go back to insert. And when we rotate, ta-da, now it stays together, okay? And it's kind of crooked, so I have to fix that. But this is just wanted to give you a brief go through on this assignment on the same manner that I did this little bolts, or I don't know what you call those, the knobs, these small ones here. You can do the outlets, right? So you just create the outlet. If you want to add more detail to your windows, maybe a horizontal slat, feel free to go the simple way. Just create a cube and scale it and just put it in there. So there's many ways to do the same thing, as long as you do it and it's efficient and it works for the production. There's no rule number 1 or rule number 2 on that, as long as you produce what it needs to be produced, okay? So you could do something as simple as this, just a little cube that goes there, and that gives you one of those windows that are kind of sliding. So I'm going to push it back, because I don't want it to go through that. So now it looks more like one of those that go up and down. Like I have one of those in my house. So you kind of push the window up and then see the frame. If you want to go even more detailed, you can duplicate that, and this is where the photorealism. Oh, sorry, that didn't mean to do that. Duplicate just this one. Edit, duplicate this, and then you can do the one on the bottom. That usually holds the glass. And the mechanism on the side, you can build that. The more detail you add, the more closer to realism you get, okay? So I hope this helps, and I look forward to seeing you apply these concepts.